Good afternoon. Welcome back to another episode of the Done Deal Show. I'm joined as ever by Dean Jones. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm good. It's getting lively, isn't it?
It is. It was such a sort of slow build up to the transfer window. Loads of little stories. Football ended for a few weeks, and then bang, yesterday, Arsenal.
Felt like deadline day, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It did feel like a deadline day. Arsenal, are they getting Vlahovic? Now they're not. There's Isak news. You've got Traore to Tottenham now. You've got Man United linked with about 752 midfielders. It's lots to go through today. Viewers, make sure you get your comments in. Any questions that you've got, please put them in. Of course, we always prioritize our members' chats and our super chats as well. Any questions you have about any deals, please let us know. But there's a comment here straight away. It said, Arsenal fans are so gullible. Now, I'm not having a pop at Arsenal fans. I know you said last week on the show you didn't see it happening. You didn't see the Vlahovic picking Arsenal. But it does kind of appear now that he's going to go to Juve. That's where he's decided. Any shocks at all? Did Arsenal come close in your mind? I mean, there are talks now, again, of the agent ignoring phone calls again or ignoring offers from Arsenal and Tottenham. So what's the lowdown with that whole situation as far as you're aware?
Arsenal was always more in hope than expectation that they would actually get Vlahovic. It was an opportunity in this window to try and jump the queue, to see if they could tempt him to come into the Premier League, try and satisfy Fiorentina with a big offer, hopefully more than they could have got in the summer, and just basically take a chance and try and get a real good young player into the club and hopefully boost them in the second half of the season. Vlahovic was never that interested in it. It never really got very far, to be honest with you. Interestingly, like when it all started, there had been sounds out of Italy for months, really, that Juve already had. I mean, it's not a gentleman's agreement, but that's what we would call it, I guess, on a more like general view, that he was going to go to Juve. Like that's what everyone felt. Fiorentina didn't want him to go to Juve. You know, it's a trodden path that they don't like. You know, Bernardeschi, Chiesa. You know, they didn't want another Fiorentina player going to Juventus. But ultimately, in the last couple of weeks, like Vlahovic basically was like, if I'm going now, I'm going one place, and it's Juventus. There are various reasons. Obviously, Juventus are a bigger club than Arsenal right now, and the fact he's still in Italy means that the transition is easier for him. He can still be top goal scorer in Serie A this season. He's a better chance of playing Champions League football next year. That was one of the big sticking points for Arsenal, was that they can't guarantee the path into Champions League, and I know that was one of the things that really held him back, apart from the fact he wasn't really ready for the Premier League yet. So no, I don't think Arsenal were ever really thought that they would get him, but they gave it a go. And from what I was told from people around Arsenal anyway, I think I mentioned it on here before, a lot of people don't feel that Vlahovic is a good fit for Arsenal. Stylistically, he's not the type of striker that would probably thrive in the system that Arteta seems to be building. There's always been a thought that Isak or Calvert-Lewin would be better for what Arsenal are building towards. Well, we'll find out now, because they're going to have to go down a different path anyway.
Yeah, look, I find this whole deal really interesting, because I was really emboldened really by the way Arsenal went about it, because they did everything in reverse. The pattern of transfers in the last few years, I think because of social media, PR, controlling the narrative. I mean, you put this massively into my head in the summer when we spoke about the Rafael Varane deal. You know, I was telling you behind the scenes, I've heard that this is close. I've been told this is happening. And you were like, yeah, the official brief is that Man United haven't done much. He wasn't on the transfer list for us initially. The opportunity came out, and they didn't want to go too far down the line and then lose out and look stupid. Yeah. And that's how most transfers appear to now be. You do all the work with the player very privately and quietly behind the scenes. And once that's all agreed, you start talking to the club. Arsenal, it seemingly looks credible to me that Arsenal put in, whether it was official or unofficial bids, but conversation with Fiorentina where they knew what would be acceptable in terms of a transfer fee. They appeared to be talking to the agent. There was a lot of talk weeks ago about this up to £15 million in agent fees they were willing to pay. It's almost like they did all that work, but the one thing they didn't have in place, as we kind of knew, was the player. But I was emboldened by it because I think they had to go that way on this deal. I think they almost had to make it public and show how much they wanted Vlahovic in the hope that maybe the offer from Juve didn't come. Maybe the offer wasn't good enough. Maybe, the transfer market's an interesting place. Maybe, the 2 or 3 things don't go right for Juve and they haven't got their ducks in a row to get him. Arsenal took a massive chance here. I always felt there was a chance they could pull this off, but they had to have a few things kind of fall their way. But what I always worried about from an Arsenal point of view was how this was going to look, because they've now put themselves in a very interesting situation where they've proven to the Arsenal fans 2 windows running, they have money. They tried to sign Lautaro Martinez. They then tried to sign Vlahovic for in and around 70 odd million pounds, depending on what report you read. Yeah. They have to now go and sign another striker. They've proven they've got the money. They've missed out on their top 2 priorities across 2 windows. Alexander Isak is another name. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's another. They clearly want a striker. They're not getting either of those 2 players because of new deals and moving to Juve. My only concern would be, if I was a Gooner now, I'd be looking at my board, I'd be looking at my owners and saying, are you serious about signing a top-class striker or a better striker? Or are you just chasing deals that you've got no chance of getting to look good to us fans? And I know that's a bit of, I'm a fan, I'm not a journalist, so I'm looking at this from a fan point of view. If you've proven you've got the money on 2 or 3 occasions, go out now this week, drop a big offer in for your number 2 target, whether that's Isak, whether it's Dominic Calvert-Lewin. They're obviously on your agenda. But for me, I think it's criminal to the Arsenal fans now if they don't react.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at it that way, but I mean, on the flip side, Arsenal they're trying to sell the club right now, and until they're in Europe, it's not a good sell. It's not easy to sell the club's vision. It's not easy to convince people of where they're heading. It's been a problem that they've had, obviously, since they failed to qualify at the end of last season, and Arteta's kind of on a personal mission to sell the club. He's like a salesman in his part-time, trying to sell the club to these players. And, right now, Arsenal 6th in the league. They really, really need to finish, if they can, in the Champions League this season, obviously, but they've got to make sure they have European football again by the time we get to summer in order to get some of these people more interested in joining Arsenal. Alex Isak, I'm told, actually isn't that interested in joining Arsenal at the moment. Not necessarily just Arsenal. I think he's a bit cagey about the Premier League generally. And if he does come, he wants to be absolutely sure that it's a good fit for him. He's in a good feeling right now. He's in a good moment. And like Vlahovic was, really, he's sceptical that Arsenal is the right stepping stone for him at this moment in his career. So again, Arsenal are going to have a big sell from this point on, telling Alex Isak that Arsenal's the club for him. Calvert-Lewin might be a bit different. Calvert-Lewin's already in the country. He knows a lot more about Arsenal. He knows a lot more about Arteta. He knows, he's seeing week by week, like what the vision is, how Arsenal are playing, what the general feeling is around the club. He knows some people in the team. So Calvert-Lewin might actually be a more realistic one, especially as Everton are in such a transitional moment. I think it's really going to depend on who gets this manager's job, on what changes at Everton in the coming months. I do see that if it doesn't go well, that Calvert-Lewin considers his future in the summer, and that might be the moment that Arsenal make their move for him. So yeah, out of the 3, I've always thought that Calvert-Lewin was the most probable anyway. I doubt they'll get anyone in this window now. Not of that level anyway.
Yeah, it's good. It's going to be. I totally get that with the likes of Isak, because I mean, Isak probably didn't see 4 years ago. Isak would have probably never imagined that he'd be at Real Sociedad, and I mean that with respect to them. But he was at Dortmund. He was very highly talented, and his trajectory was to Dortmund and then something bigger. And he's gone. Real Sociedad for me are not as big or as good as Dortmund are. So he's gone backwards and he's sort of rebuilding. And Arsenal in such an interesting transition, because I think they've improved this year, and I've said it on so many occasions. But I don't think the improvement is as far along gone as some of their, what I call their toxic positive fans. These fans are they're interesting people, because they almost hate like the AFTV model of like, when you're angry with the club, expressing it publicly. Theirs is the other way. They're so positive about the club, they become toxic with anybody that isn't as excited or isn't as convinced that things are in an amazing place. They've just gone 5 games across all competitions without a win, 4 without scoring. That is a hard sell to anybody. And I'm not convinced that the club are willing to go out there and do more Pepe level signings, only because they seem to nearly get one over the line, they miss out, and then they don't throw the money onto somebody else. And it's not like they're missing out on a player like Man United missed out on Bruno or Liverpool missed out on Van Dijk, where the following window you can get them. They're missing out on players that are then signing new deals or moving to other clubs. So they clearly have to move on to somebody else. And I know January is a very difficult month to do it in, but this coming summer, it's a big one for the Cronkies. It's a big one for the ball. It's a big one for Arsenal, because they've got to... These fans need something, because they are building something nice. They just need more experience or quality added to this squad. And, I do feel for the Gooners in that way. They are also looking at Arthur as well. Do you see that deal getting done?
Again, is the player needs convincing that this is the right move for him. I think from what I'm told from contact in Italy is that for him, he could imagine himself becoming part of this Arsenal project, but not for 4 or 5 months. Like, as a player in his position, to make the switch from Serie A to the Premier League, settle into the side, settle into the style of football, and then start to try and assert yourself on that team and become part of it, and then not know if you're staying any longer, and you're back there. Not really what he's looking for. So from what I'm told, he'd like a longer term deal. And I think Juve, if he's going to go, would prefer it to be permanent. So at the moment, I think that there's still work to be done on that. Arteta definitely likes him. Allegri, I think he's take or leave him, to be honest. He's not exactly what he's looking for in that style of, in that position. So it's doable. It's definitely doable. And it's certainly more doable than Vlahovic ever was. And I think that the good thing for all clubs in England at the moment is that they've got full focus on the transfer window right now. There's been times in past transfer windows when you're heading towards deadline day and you've actually got a busy schedule going into deadline day, and you're busy with fixtures as well. But at the moment, this week's clear, and clubs have got, the players are going away on holiday, which is a little bit complicated, and that's why you'll see a few moves that are being talked about now not actually happen until deadline day, because a few of the players genuinely aren't around at the moment. But for the people actually doing the deals and for the managers to have their say on targets and stuff, it's actually quite a nice week for them to actually fully focus on that.
Yeah, I bet it is. And it feels like this winter break that's now been given to the Premier League. I know we didn't kind of have it last year. I think we had it 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. It kind of makes this, the transfer window is basically a week long now, 10 days long. Because I almost felt we were going to get onto Tottenham later with the Adama Traore. I almost felt like Wolves wanted just to hold on to him as long as they could. And then it's like, we'll talk about the deal once these round of games are out the way and the busy, because January in a way is almost as congested as December, because you have the FA Cup coming into play and amongst a few other things. But the final bit on Arsenal I wanted to get from you, your take on Arteta's new deal that is being spoken about. A few reports last week, they're going to offer him a 2-year extension, some more money to stay. Have you heard anything about that at all?
I haven't, but from what I've heard before now, it would fit in with what I've heard, because they see Arteta as the future of the club right now. I think back to, probably 2 times he's been under severe pressure in his time there so far, and both times they were like, they won't twist here. They'll stick with him unless it becomes impossible to, because they're part of a project now, and he's completely sold his vision to the board. They understand what he's aiming for. They knew it was going to take a while to settle. So, you talk about the fact that they've gone 5 games without a win, but if you think back to the 5 games before that, they beat Norwich 5-0, they beat Sunderland 5-1, they beat Leeds 4-1, they beat West Ham 2-0, they beat Southampton 3-0. And, we were looking at that team, and you're looking at the young players that are coming through under Arteta, and you're thinking, actually, Arsenal's looking like a good place to be now, possibly the best academy in England. The guys are showing that they can take that step up. Arteta's showing he's willing to give people a chance. They want to get Aubameyang out the door so they can give those wages to somebody else, get another premium player in, and let them be the star that kind of guides all this young group. So I can fully believe that Arteta would be given an improved contract, yeah.
There we go. We have some super chats here. One here says the EPL need to do better in competing for top players with top teams in other leagues, always losing out or missing out on top talent dating back to Henry and CR7. I think it comes down to this. Look, I believe the Premier League is the best league in Europe. Not so much. I'm not saying technically better. I'm just saying most entertaining. We know that because more people watch it around the world than any other league. It's very well done. But people just have different desires. People grow up wanting to play in different countries, in different leagues. You know, people also get settled in particular countries and whatever else. And I'm not being funny. You know, playing in Turin or Milan or Barcelona or Madrid, they're beautiful cities, nicer weather. Do you know what I mean? It's.
I mean, Henry and Ronaldo did both spend quite a long time in England.
They did, yeah. Henry especially. Henry spent his best years, I would say,
Yeah.
in the
Not
Premier
really
League.
sure I understand that point, but yeah.
But look, it is what it is, you know, and everything else. But listen, our clubs here are massive, but equally, so are the clubs. I actually believe if Man United and Liverpool had this, Man United have the spend, but we're not at the top of the tree right now. And if Liverpool are at the top of the tree, but they don't spend the money. Liverpool, if they went toe to toe with a Real Madrid or a Barca and offered the same types of money, could pull in whoever they wanted. I think Liverpool and Man United, they've got the historic factor that the Real Madrids and the Barcelonas and the Bayern Munichs have. It's just about being prepared to spend the money they do. You look back at some of the salaries that they've given certain players that have picked the big Spanish clubs as an example, and it's massively above what anyone here is being paid, if that makes sense. So it's when Messi's being paid like what 700-800 grand a week, like it's massive. But then look where Barca are now. Do you know what I mean? It's I don't know if I want to do those deals. I don't know if I want to do those deals.
Yeah.
Staying in North London, though, lots going on at Tottenham right now. I think the biggest one that Spurs fans are it's interesting because they didn't really sound like they wanted him. And then there are some reports from The Athletic today that there's still a lot to be done between Wolves and Tottenham. You spoke about a week ago of sort of in the next 7 to 10 days, that deal looks like it could be done. What's the latest with Adama Traore to Tottenham?
I don't think, as far as I don't know of any problems that have occurred here. The last I heard, we were close to an agreement, and Traore was signing a contract to be with Tottenham until 2026. I believe that's still to be the case. I haven't heard otherwise. Let's say because we're in a moment when a few players and people around the deals are away or like focusing on other stuff, and Tottenham was particularly busy. Like it might not have happened as quickly as I might have thought. But yeah, as far as I know, Traore is going to be a Tottenham player. Probably the most exciting addition they make as well in this window. They are going to be busy in the next week. Daniel Levy always does tend to wait till this week to get his stuff done. And I think that there's a lot of work to be done, obviously, in outs as well as ins. And that's going to kind of be needed before it happens. And you're seeing, Dele and Dembele and Lo Celso linked with transfers away, and that's because they need to be gone. They are fringe players, and they do need fringe players, obviously, to pad out the squad and to step up when COVID hits or other injuries hit or suspension. But they are looking at other options now. I mean, it's being reported that Sofyan Amrabat is somebody they're in talks with, and that is true. They've gone after various midfielders in this window. They've pursued Weston McKennie. They've pursued Frank Kessie. I think from what I understand Amrabat is the one that they see as probably most doable in this window. I mean, it's in one sense a bit of a strange signing because he doesn't really play at Fiorentina, to be honest. He's not really in the team that much. Doesn't mean he's not a good footballer. Doesn't mean he won't fit in at Tottenham. But fans might be looking at it and thinking, why are we signing another guy that's going to be on the bench? Like, not necessarily going to be the case. Like, he's a good player, but probably not quite the profile of McKennie or Kessie, who some might have preferred. So they're busy in that sense. And then obviously there was the link yesterday to Mohamed-Ali, a forward from Angers. Now that interest is 100% genuine. They really like the player, and they are looking to do a deal there. From a Tottenham point of view, they feel he's slightly overvalued from what I'm told. Angers looking for around 20 million euros, and I think they're trying to negotiate around that and haggle it, see if they can figure something out. Again, he's young. He's not a guy that's going to come and change your season, but he could change games, and I think that's part of it. He can play as a two-man attack. He can play off of a main forward. So it would kind of be like a Son type figure, I would imagine, if that's how Tottenham would probably see him emerging. But he's young and he's still got loads of potential. So Tottenham are really busy trying to get stuff done, and I think that that is usually the case. they were looking at a centre back as well. It's not looking like they'll end up getting anyone in this window in that sense. But as we've said before, you never know what opportunities might arise in the last couple of days.
Yeah, well, I've got Eric Dyer now. Eric Dyer's looking great. He's I think mad about Eric Dyer. So many football fans think he's trash, but every manager at Spurs so far has absolutely backed him.
Yeah. Plays for England, plays for Tottenham week in, week out. Like, there are
so many players like that. Sort of Jordan Henderson's, like Scott McTominay is my favorite at the minute, in the sense of everyone that despises him was like, listen, Ralph's in, McTominay's never playing again. Ralph keeps talking about how he's going to build his midfield around him. It's hilarious. Yeah. It is. Yeah. I don't necessarily think he's that great personally. I like the fact that eye test merchants keep getting like in the mud by top man. That's why I hope and pray we get Ten Hag on the list, just for this reason. It's so petty. It's so petty. But we bring in Ten Hag, who's considered the most technically gifted manager outside of that's attainable for United, and then he keeps playing Scotty Mac. I would just die with laughter. It'd be like, that one, Perry. Just tell me, explain that to me in a series of tweets as to why this man, the fourth guy in the balance, is wrong. It'd be funny.
I think McTominay is playing really well. I think he's doing all right.
No, he is playing well. He is playing well, and I think for me, I kind of look at it and think to myself, he's doing a good job. It just isn't spectacular, but I remember being one of the biggest supporters of Michael Carrick during his time at United. Now, social media wasn't really a thing or at all when he was in his pomp at United. But I'd be in the pubs, I'd be at the ground, I'd be on my way to away games, and the way everybody spoke about him, what does he do? He controls the tempo of the game. He shields the back foot. Yeah, but what does he actually do? When you broke it down, it was like, doesn't go into crunching tackles, doesn't score screamers, doesn't play the final ball in attacks to create the goals. I'm like, that ain't what his job is. His job's more subtle than that, but you need it. And it's only really been the last few years since the word register became popular because of Football Manager. Now suddenly everybody raves about those positions because people see the worth in it, if that makes sense. Like Liverpool fans did a great job of elevating Jordan Henderson's role in the team. And essentially Jordan Henderson was cover for Trent. Essentially, he's a great driving force and he was cover for Trent. But yeah, it's definitely intriguing. But Tottenham, the deals they're looking at are interesting, mate, as you say, because Traore, none of the players on the list would I say I've seen Spurs fans in the last 18 months talk about wanting, if that makes sense. Yeah. Kesse's come up, but obviously he's not kind of happening. Amrabat, you mentioned Traore. Are these players you think Antonio Conte will be happy with?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, Traore, I think, is the biggest changer in terms of what Tottenham's style will look like, and in terms of giving him a different outlet. I think that will actually be really intriguing to see how Adama will do. In terms of the central midfielder, Amrabat, if it's him, I don't get to see loads of him. I've spoken to a couple of guys this morning just to ask him, would he fit? And they're like, yeah, look, he's a really good player, and I can totally understand how he would fit into a Conte setup. It's not the mini overhaul some Tottenham fans will feel they'll need, but you don't do mini overhauls in January. You can't do it. You can get rid of the guys that are a bad vibe around the place. You can get rid of people that aren't performing. You can try and bring in a goal scorer to try and give you special moments that can transform your season, or you can just bring in guys that seem more suitable to your system. And I think that's probably what they're looking at right now.
McTerry. I hear that completely. I think the January windows are an interesting one for people. But look, those three players you've mentioned, it's the extra depth they need as well. And do you know what? Even if they get a bit of a Joe Willock, a Jesse Lingard second half of the season, like spike from one of these players, that could just be enough. Because for me, I'm still convinced that Tottenham are the favourites of the three, United, Spurs and Arsenal, to make that top four spot, just based on the fact that barring the game against Chelsea, in the league, they've just been so solid with Antonio Conte, where Man United, yes, we were good against West Ham, but that's the first decent performance in what feels like months. Yeah. And Arsenal, you just don't quite know because they're full of kids. The team's full of kids, and it's so up and down when you play with kids in that way. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Also in London, there's a lot of talk today about Jules Kounde. I know you spoke at large on the show before about Chelsea's interest in him, how much they want him. There are still talks that the move is close, could happen this month still, maybe loaned back. Have you heard anything about that? Any change in that direction at all?
No, I mean, I said from the off at the start of this month when I was previewing it that it wouldn't surprise me at all if Chelsea tied up deals for Jules Kounde and Tchouaméni in this window. They were trying to foresee issues that are coming, and like I think that Chelsea's contractual issues in defence have caught them by surprise a little bit. I don't think they expected as many issues as have arisen, and from what I'm told, like Azpilicueta and Christensen have now got such good offers on the table that Chelsea probably aren't going to match them. So at this stage, you would imagine that Azpilicueta and Christensen will both be leaving Chelsea. And at the moment, Rudiger still will be as well. I know that I see various Chelsea accounts and Chelsea Twitter trying to build hope that Rudiger's staying. And I'm not saying that there's no hope that he stays, but there's still a very good chance he leaves. And because of all these reasons, they have to have a plan in place. So I think Jules Kounde and trying to get a deal for him in place does make sense. Getting him right now is almost impossible with Sevilla, trying to make sure they keep this team together as much as they can for this season. Newcastle trying to sign one of their other defenders right now, Diego Carlos, and you can't lose both those guys, obviously, right now. So yeah, they'll try and hold out for the deal that they get and the release clause if they can. But yeah, Chelsea will try and get that one done, I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, getting some, I could see a thing with Jules Kounde of it being a little bit Pulisic-esque. It's almost, I could imagine mid-February they announce it. Deal's been agreed. It'll happen in the summer. I don't know why. That's just I've got a feeling, just a feeling as a fan in terms of the way they're kind of moving. The Rudiger thing is really interesting because I was told by someone I know that works for the club that he had positive talks. But you put that out and you share the information. It's like, oh, good, we're going to keep him. It's like, nice, they're positive talks. It doesn't mean he's going to stay yet. Equally, he could. But you know what that's like, polarized. I'm pretty sure your comment there's a very good chance that he leaves. Some Chelsea fan will come at you when he signs.
100%.
You said it was a very good chance. There's also a good chance he'll stay.
But I also says not impossible he stays, and it's not. It's just the fact. Like I can't predict like how a business deal is going to unfold. But like I know the deep-rooted problems that are in this deal that I can't really speak about at the moment, that are holding him back from signing this contract. And there is an issue there, and he's got unbelievable offers to play elsewhere. So yes, he'll come out and give interviews saying, Rudiger will say that he's happy in London, his family are happy in London, and he, obviously when he plays for Chelsea, he's looking like he's loving it, but I've seen it a million times before. So I'm afraid there has to be a side of you, particularly as a journalist, that has some cynicism about you, and that you have to, remain level-headed and believe what the people you're talking to are telling you, because, well, it's my job to do that. And you kind of trust these people, and well, most of the time they're right. Obviously, sometimes they get it wrong.
Yeah, look, and I don't even always think it's I said this to you, my view on what the media does in sport. Forget media outside of sport. I think you'll know this. I think like you can work for a newspaper as a sports columnist. The way that operates seems to be completely away from new politics and everything else. Like I don't really get involved in that. Like that's different. Mm-hmm. But I used to think like journalists would make stories up. And then the more journalists I've met and you get to know them personally, you're like, yeah, they're not making up stories. They're just telling you what they're being told. And it all comes with a risk. And I've noticed this pattern as well. And if I'm completely off with this, tell me. I kind of see when a journalist is coming up or they're on the way up or they're trying to grow their popularity, they push out news earlier, where the more experienced you are, the more credible the public perceive you to be. You can wait until you could be the 10th, 15th, 20th journalist to post that story, but you still get the flowers for it because you're the most. It's almost the smaller guys are not being listened to before the bigger guys.
Yeah, it's hard. It's an ego thing as well, right? Like you want to be seen to be good at your job, and as you get older, you'll think, well, who does it matter to most that I know that my information is right? Like for me, I've got to the point where it's most important that, I trust the guys that are giving me stories, that you trust me and the people watching this can trust me, and anyone else that employs me starts to get an understanding that I'm giving them news. Even if I haven't written it, I would probably have told them that something's happening. For example, like the Roy Hodgson story. I had that story on Saturday that Roy Hodgson was going to be was being offered the Watford job, and at the time, didn't go to. They hadn't approached Hodgson at that point, but they were putting together a package, and then on Monday I got a text late yesterday afternoon saying they've made their approach to Hodgson's considering what to do, and I didn't go anywhere with it, and I know a couple of other journalists had it too, and none of us had actually done anything with it. The feeling was it would probably have held for today, and we were going to do it today, and then it breaks last night, and that's when it's difficult, because I hate being the person that comes out and goes, well, I did know this, but, or like, as I told you, like 4 months ago, like that's not okay to start doing that, to try and grasp back some respect and credibility. You just got to accept that, like, you've missed that moment. Like, add something if you can. Like, I tweeted something last night about the Hodgson thing, and the fact that it's been ongoing for a couple of days, like, just to add something to the story if you can. But like, it's difficult sometimes to be like, oh no, I've missed my moment. What do I do? But don't worry about it. You know that you knew, and that's good enough.
Yeah, no, listen, I hear that completely. I think it's even intriguing. I don't ever claim to be a journalist, and normally when I'm getting information, if it's from you, I'll copy you in. If I see another journalist talk about it or say it, I put it out there. Sometimes it's just a case of I'm reading lots of different things on socials in papers, and I'm like, so and so deal looks on, or this is an or this. I said that I'm hearing a lot of this, and it was because I was in a group chat and everyone was talking about these things they're reading. And I'm like, I heard this is going on. And people are like, where'd you get it from? And I'm like, I don't really know. It's just information. It's out there. It is what it is. But people are really pernickety about it, like massively now. Like, who comes? I try to give flowers for the person that I see put it out there first, and as best I can. But equally, like everybody, as we know, everyone gets briefed by the same people as well. I suppose it's that how do I word it? Do I go with it? And it's about your view around it. If I don't think this deal is going to happen, maybe it's not worth even putting the information out there, because then when it doesn't happen, they're going to say that you gave out false information, which you didn't. It's just the way it is. But very, very intriguing indeed. Manchester United. There are lots of different stories circulating at the minute. One of the first ones, I think Fabrizio has put something out about this today as well, but Donny van de Beek, can you see him potentially leaving at all? It keeps coming up.
Yeah, I can. I was talking to someone about this a few days ago, and we're talking about like what's not being spoken about right now that's probably going to crop up, and we should start to have a dig around, players that futures are unclear, and Van der Beek was one of the ones that I was looking into. I saw it popped up my phone a minute ago about Fabrizio. I haven't actually read it, but he put, I sort of think he said Palace and someone, but from what I was told at the time, the clubs that had been sniffing around Donny this month were Everton, Newcastle, Wolves, and Borussia Dortmund had all made inquiries as to whether he was available. Man United he's not like readily available. There's not really any benefit in Man United losing Donny van der Beek for the rest of this season, because he might be a useful player. But obviously, Van der Beek and his representatives don't want to hang around just in case he gets the chance to play football. Like, he's a really good player, and he'd love the chance to like get out there regularly again and show it. So I think it's one of those that becomes basically a case of how hard is he going to force the issue here. I've got a feeling he might actually start forcing it. I think that he's so frustrated, and has been throughout the Solskjaer reign and now going into the Rangnick reign, that he's like, don't understand what's happening here. I don't understand why you signed me. Let me go somewhere else if you don't want me. And that's what I see happening. Obviously, going from that place to a transfer takes a while, but again, those usually the situations that unravel in the last day or two of the window, maybe even coming right down to deadline.
Yeah, like, I see it as well. I mean, we all expected when Ollie got sacked for him to play, and he's barely kicked a ball. Again, there's been games where we needed more control. There's been games where we needed a bit more quality in possession, and he just doesn't. And I don't know what the reason is. I'm almost at a point where I can't keep speculating, because it's just too difficult to. So I want him to kind of get a move away. It's a little bit like the Martial deal that's now been confirmed. It's a loan, but it'll come back. there feels like there's still an option with a loan with no obligation to buy, where if Martial goes away to Sevilla and he's flying, gets confidence back, Man United might look to keep him. It could almost look the same with Donny, because according to what Fabrizio has said, that they want him part of the squad next year. Well, either let him play with us or let him play somewhere else. Him sitting on the bench for 5 more months is doing nobody any favors. It's
No.
you
I
must
mean,
invest as a player if you're not playing football.
yeah, I mean, with both those guys and Jesse Lingard, it's also a case of they don't want to cut their ties with United right now because they're not sure who the manager's going to be next season. And if they can go on loan now and have a really good spell, then they come back, different player, different personality again in the summer, and get a new contract. Maybe in the case of Lingard or with these guys, just like force their way in there in pre-season and be in a good moment and hit the ground running and try and prove themselves for a final time that they can actually cut it at Man United. I know that's the case for a few of those players, particularly Jesse, and why he hasn't actually looked to push for a permanent transfer. It doesn't really make any sense for him to make a permanent transfer anyway, because in the summer he could be a free agent and he'll land a big signing on fee as well as a bigger wage. So for Lingard right now, if he does leave Man United, a loan is absolutely ideal because he gets best of both. He either works his way back in at Man United and gets a new contract, however unlikely that seems right now, or he puts a platform for himself and stands on the stage and going, look what I did in the last 5 months. Who wants me? And there'll be loads of clubs out there would want Jesse Lingard.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time, and I think that Man United out will be one to watch in the coming days.
Absolutely, and then coming in, I mean, again, it's the amount of midfield players that we've been linked with is a madness. And I think what you just said a moment ago about who the manager's going to be, whether Ralph's even here next year or not, is going to play a part. There is a lot of talk about Babacar Kamara. There's a interesting report from the Graziera Italia, who were again one of the first outlets last night to report, even before Fabrizio, to report that Juve and Fiorentina have pretty much come to a deal. They're suggesting that Man United are leading the race for him. There's talk about Rangnick having agreed a deal personally with RB Leipzig for Haidara. There's always these kind of mooted links to Ruben Neves. In terms of incomings at Man United, with it seemingly looking like a player or two is leaving, could United fans get excited or expect any incomings, especially in the midfield area?
I wouldn't expect anyone. I'd say it'd be a bonus if anyone does come. It's not, again, impossible, but United open to good value deals. I guess in the case of Boubacar Kamara, like his contract's winding down. He's young. He fills a hole that they need filled. They need to improve and have more competition in that area of the park. All the other players that they've looked at are being priced extremely highly. Don't think that would be the case with him. So he ticks a lot of boxes in that sense. And then you do wonder whether that's something that you could pull off at this stage of the window. You notice at the moment a lot of clubs are sniffing around France because they feel like those clubs have struggled so much in the past couple of years that they might take an offer for these players and that the players' heads will be turned if they do. But anyone of like bigger profile, I struggle to see Man United doing it right now, purely because there's so much uncertainty and they didn't have any concrete plans to actually invest.
Yeah, I mean, it's an intriguing one because you say Kamara, I've read, around £10 million. Haidara, I think it's around 30, 40 million. You then go to like where we kind of feel like the number one target is still Declan Rice, but that's 900 mil. You sort of think to yourself, I was looking and going, Ruben Neves, 40 million, Haidara, 40, 45, Kamara for 10. There's something about that is better value because you're actually feeling, because Pogba's leaving, Matic is finished, Fred isn't good enough. So you sort of think we need more than one. Declan Rice is almost a bit of it's a mega signing, but it eats up so much budget, And and those other guys are good.
They are, but I mean, there's a reason Declan Rice is priced so highly because West Ham know what they've got, and Man United, if they could get Declan Rice, it transforms so many things, particularly under Rangnick. Like, he's got to look for a midfielder that can, make the transition quicker in play, like look to feed the attackers, like get that ball out to them faster. And Declan Rice as well, like traditionally we consider him a holding midfielder, Chelsea were looking to sign him initially. They were looking at him maybe as even a centre-back. Now you're looking at Declan Rice, and he's a box-to-box midfielder. He's actually got visions to become more of an attacking midfielder. He's starting to get on more set pieces. He wants to take penalties. Declan Rice is looking to become like, a midfield maestro. He wants to be the captain. He wants to do everything. And I think that's the thing with signing Declan Rice, especially because he's English. Like, he changes everything in terms of the fans believing your vision for where you're heading. It changes. You've seen United and how they've tried to bring in English talent anyway recently, and they've spent quite heavily to try and do that on Maguire, on Sancho. And now it's a case of adapting it all together. And I think that by bringing in someone like Declan Rice, like it's quicker and it's easier because he knows Maguire is playing behind him. He knows some of the guys up front. You got Rashford, you got Greenwood, you got Sancho. Gets to play with Ronaldo for a year. Gets to play, him and McTominay or Fred or whoever else is in there with him. Like, he'll figure that out. Declan Rice is like an all-action superhero, right? He's man of the match every single week for West Ham. It's crazy how many times he's been man of the match this season. But yeah, he's £100 million plus he's going to be 300 grand a week plus big signing non-fees from what I'm told as well. And that's where it all kind of hits the buffers because you're like, can we do that? Should we do that? What happened to that Sancho money we just spent? Like, yeah, we saved some money by waiting, but that didn't work out. I don't know. It's a gamble in one sense, but also you're making a real statement of intent because you sign Boubacar Kamara, good player, I'm sure. How excited are you if they sign Boubacar Kamara, or how excited are you if they sign Declan Rice?
Oh, I'm much more excited about Declan Rice, but that's because I watch him more and I see what he can do.
Yeah, maybe.
But at the same time, if Kamara was doing in Germany what Declan Rice is doing in England, the chase for him, the money surrounding him, the buzz, the buzz. There isn't a midfielder that Man United are linked to. I would say Tchouaméni is a bit younger. There's a big buzz around him around Europe, as an example.
Yeah.
But the Haidaras and the Kamaras and Zacharias, there's talk about these players. There's talk about how good they are, but none of them have for me, and I guess unless I'm missing it somewhere, I'm not seeing the same buzz as I do with Declan Rice. My only concern with Rice, I think he's a brilliant player, is the money. And when we did it on the show last week where we went through the top 30 highest transfers of all time across the top 4 leagues in Europe, and we only named 6 that were a success. That's another concern that I've got. When you start going through all the big money signings, so many of them don't really deliver. And I'm talking here purely as a Man United fan. Every time we seem to go big on a signing, don't work out. And I'm just worried that it would happen again. I almost feel like if we signed 3 players for a combined fee of 60 million, that would serve us better than 100. Just we get it wrong so much. And look, I'd love to sign Declan Rice. If we got the performances out of Declan Rice, if any team gets Declan Rice performances at West Ham at their club, their team improved by 15, 20%. However good they are, they improve to that next level because he has everything. He really does. Yeah. He's got the athleticism. I'm not saying he's electric in speed, but he's not a slouch. He's great. But I suppose that's the difficulty with Man United going after a midfielder this month, though, is that element of if you went out and signed Haidara and Kamara now, put them on decent deals, 100, 50, 80, 90, 100 grand a week, you basically stop the Declan Rice deal happening anyway, in my view, but what you're going to commit to them. And it's almost, but if we wait until the summer, we might get someone that's even better. So I suppose that's a conundrum, but there's still a lot of news out there circulating today from Grazia and a number of others that, Manchester Evening News did a thing that United are in pole position to sign him this month. And these deals seem on for me. It feels like we're talking to these people. It feels like we're active in these transfers, but it's whether or not we actually execute a bid, that's kind of how it feels. It feels for me, but I'm intrigued that was going to happen. I really, really am.
Yeah, it's also to do with characters as well. It depends what United are exactly looking for in profile. But look, Kamara, for example, I saw someone just mention it there. He could also play at the back, and that's true. Like he can. And I saw someone else talk as well. Like if you're an elite club, you look at Frenkie de Jong, and that is an interesting point because Frenkie de Jong seems to be touted around everywhere at the moment, and I'm not sure exactly why that is yet. I haven't figured it out, but he's getting linked with a few clubs, and maybe Barcelona are looking to cash in on him in order to build elsewhere in that team because they've got so many players that can play defensive midfield coming through their academy. Maybe they would listen to offers for de Jong. And if that's the case, like de Jong could be got at less than Declan Rice, I'd imagine. And that has to be taken seriously because he's so good technically, and you can shape him into your team as you see fit. So there are a lot of other things to be considered. And while I'm sat here talking up Declan Rice, let's not forget that this kind of money has completely put United off over the past year. So we haven't seen any signs yet that they'll be revisiting it.
Yeah, it's going to be very intriguing indeed. I think Chelsea play a big part in that as well, because Chelsea, I mean, you telling us Chelsea definitely is number one choice, but it's whether or not Chelsea are going to come in for him. It's whether Chelsea go for a different player or not. Again, United need to be mindful. In the same way Arsenal, you don't want to pull off a Vlahovic with Declan Rice. You don't want to go right. No to Zakaria, he signs to Liverpool. No to Kamara, he goes Dortmund. I'm just making up names now. You miss out on those three players. You're going for Rice, and then Rice goes Chelsea, and then you're left with no one. It's almost that United have got to get this right. From a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. Smith here says, if you don't try, you don't get. Clubs must have received some sort of encouragement to pursue it. Vlahovic isn't the only striker available. Dominic Calvert-Lewin deadline. Could you see that Calvert-Lewin on deadline day, Dean? Could that happen?
It's highly unlikely. I see West Ham were linked with Calvert-Lewin a couple of days ago. There's nothing in that, but that was talked about as £60 million. I'm not sure Everton would even accept £60 million for Calvert-Lewin right now. They're in a fight for survival. They're having to find a new manager to restore peace and bring some tranquility to the place. Like by selling Calvert-Lewin on deadline day, I think there might be actual riots around Goodison Park if they were to do that. With all the intent in the world, it would take a huge offer to get Everton to sell Calvert-Lewin, even if he did turn his head. So I love it. I love the ambition. It's just going to be tough right now, I think.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. Any updates from Liverpool at all? Because there was kind of mooted talks in the early parts of like the window of like this, them signing someone or getting something done, but nothing appears to have materialized at all.
Yeah, no, I mean they were quite clear from the outset that there was very little chance of them having any transfer activity, especially incoming. There are players like Nat Phillips that obviously have their futures to be resolved, but I think it's pretty clear that they're looking at potential options to begin to come into the frame for forward positions. And Jared Bowen's obviously linked. Luis Diaz is linked. Fabio Carvalho at Fulham is somebody being spoken about now as well. And I think that there is something in that they're trying to pursue. Carvalho out of contract at the end of this season. But they're not probably the Erling Haaland type transfer that Liverpool fans, might feel will give them a greater edge. And it's all going to be about Mo Salah's contract for the foreseeable future. Like that needs to be resolved one way or the other. Because if it's not a positive outcome, Liverpool have got a massive gap to fill in terms of goal output. So that will be the focus, I think, from here to the end of the season. If we get to the end of the season going in the summer and Salah's still wondering what's going on, it's going to be really hard to get him back on side. I think there's not many players of his level that get into the last year of a deal and are happy to just go along with the process and wait. So yeah, Liverpool probably going to have to step things up in that sense.
Do you know what's interesting with the Mo Salah deal is I know Liverpool fans are stressed about it because they don't like anyone talking about it. And there's almost that last week, it was last week, the story came out. Sam Wallace, very respected journalist in the Telegraph, one of the most famous publications in the world, did what I call a proper piece of work. Like I swear there was about 11 paragraphs. Like that weren't written overnight. That's days of work gone into this. We did a video where the main sort of hook story was Salah's new deal. And we must have had about 50 comments afterwards. And some of them during the live stream, to be fair, that basically said, why are you even talking about this? It's the biggest trending news outside of matches today. Why? Who would not? And then I started doing the rounds, and most Liverpool content creators weren't talking about it. It's almost not speaking about it, like Austrian
really?
style. And I find it strange, which tells me there's an element of a real concern for Liverpool. And I stand with Liverpool fans on this. Like they should be fuming. I think they have to give him what he wants for me. And I know economics play a part and the future and where else they go, but FSG have got the money. They've got the money. They've got the new Nike deal, which is the greatest sponsorship deal of all time. They have to. Like, I honestly, I will be. Listen, I want Mo Salah to leave Liverpool because I'm a Man United fan. I'm no dog in the fight. If I remove that hat and I look at this purely as a football fan, the disrespect to those supporters if they don't re-sign Mo Salah or they piss him off enough. I spoke to an agent last week who knows his agent Rami, and basically said they're going to have to get this done because there's going to be carnage if they don't. And that was his view almost. There is a lot of frustration in the camps at the moment. And this guy is not only an agent, he's a massive Liverpool fan. He backs Liverpool through thick and thin. So for him to say that tells me that there are some issues, if that makes sense. But look, I know a lot of Liverpool fans don't want to kind of talk about it. But for me, it's a real problem right now. It's a real problem. They've just got to bow down, give Mo Salah what he wants. He's their greatest ever Premier League player. Get it done. Just get it done, Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, they're probably worried about the length of the contract and stuff as well because of his age. But ultimately, I would be like, well, just guarantee you've got him for the next 2 years. And then you can sell him halfway through that if you want. You'll get your money back. You'll get good value out of him. Barcelona or Real Madrid will come knocking for him at some point, and you can price him at pretty much whatever you want. But I understand, like Liverpool seems to be run differently to a lot of the teams who do not panic buy and hand out huge contracts. But I guess that they look at Man United or Arsenal and see some of the deals that they've handed out, and I guess they're a bit wary, especially after they've just handed out deals to some of their other best players that are going to be left in the shade by this one if it happens.
Yeah, of course. It makes it all very, very interesting indeed as to what's going to happen there. Viewers, if you've got any questions or any transfers that you'd like to ask Dean about, feel free to send them in. Get them into us now. Remember, we're also live at 5 p.m. today, a little later than usual because there's no games for the Straight Facts podcast. Lee Gunner's his name. Lee Gunner's on the show. We're obviously going to be talking about no wins in 5 for Arsenal. So strap yourselves in. It's going to be a big, big show later on today. So he says, I'm 11 minutes behind. I don't want rice. In 11 minutes, you'll see us comment on it. Listen, and everyone's entitled to that. A lot of people don't. There are some fans that don't kind of want rice. And I think there's this element of like, the English bias thing. There's a lot of talk. There's certain fans that support Premier League clubs that don't like English bias, so they don't like the hype that comes with signing English players, I think. And I get it to a degree. I think it's because they watch Sky Sports and the English players tend to get spoken about the most, and they watch Match of the Day and the English players tend to get spoken about the most. And I think it's just the nature of the beast. If you watch, I would say try if you can. You must be able to use a VPN to do this. Watch the American version of Match of the Day if they've got one. I'm sure they'll talk about different players. They'll probably just talk about Pulisic. I don't know. But Strip Bear said, what about Kounde? Yeah, we spoke about the Jules Kounde transfer earlier, and I'll let you know exactly what minute that was in. We spoke about that around 25 minutes into the show. So just scroll back to 25 minutes, Strip Bear, and you'll get the update there from Dean. Mo here says, Terry, Rudiger or Dembele news. Obviously, we spoke Rudiger earlier, but Ousmane Dembele, that was for me was a bit of a shock one to see across socials last week that he was linked with this big potential move to Chelsea. What's your take, my bro?
I think that they just again see an opportunity to sign a player that would transform their front line, because you look at Chelsea, their options there at the moment. There is quite a lot of uncertainty about a lot of the players who play in those positions. Even Pulisic is talked about potentially being available in the summer. Ziyech definitely has been talked about, even though he was just putting a man of the match display. But before that, his name wasn't in a good place, was it? His reputation was going down. And then obviously Hudson-Odoi constantly seems uncertain. Timo Werner, his future's uncertain. So there's loads of people, even like Lukaku's not certain to be there, and he's just cost nearly £100 million. So Ousmane Dembele, somebody that Thomas Tuchel knows well, somebody that's available for a decent fee, but no fee, but can be signed easily. opportunities like that you have to consider, and that's all Chelsea are doing at this point. They're having conversations to find out what terms would be needed around the deal, and they'll go from there. Once they know where the table's set, then they'll be able to figure out whether they want to step up or not.
Comment here from Pav, one of our long-standing members. He says Amad Diallo to leave Man United on loan. Is that something that could still happen?
I think so, yeah. I haven't checked this one out in the last week or so. I've actually forgotten it was an issue. But the last time I did check in, yeah, he might even go into the Championship, I think. So it's one to look out for sure in the coming days.
Absolutely. Arthur is chilling. Man like Neeks, hope you're well, my friend. Hope you are well. Was there any others that we were going to talk about? Was there anything else that was on the agenda? Because the agenda seems to have disappeared from me. I can't see it now. I think that was it.
Let me have a quick flick, see if we missed anything, mate. I see someone keeps asking about Fabio Carvalho. He's just trying to wind me up because I'm a Fulham fan, I think.
We do get a lot of trolls in the comment section, but we love you just as much as the normal human beings as well. We do.
Oh, Villa Bentancur, I think, was the only one we'd kind of mentioned, and a big statement if Bentancur was to arrive at Villa Park. Aston Villa are looking to become one of the top 6 or 7, and that's why they're trying to improve every position and raise the bar in all those roles and make sure that whoever's there isn't able to just rest on their laurels. And I was told that Bentancur was finally approached yesterday. His representatives were approached, and the Aston Villa are going to try and accelerate things from here. He is interested in the transfer, so one to look out for sure. And if Villa get in through the door as well, this is a massive statement of intent from Gerrard in his first big window.
I mean, listen. I mean, there's a lot of things about Gerrard that I hate saying this because I'm a Man United. I even threw my pen down there in frustration. I don't like him only because who he is, right? Okay, he's a Liverpool legend. But there's a lot of things about him that are impressive. What he did in Scotland was amazing. What he's done so far at Villa has been brilliant. The pull that he's had in the transfer market's amazing. But actually, the most impressive thing about Steven Gerrard is he's 40 years old and his hairline is ridiculous. How is it? I mean, I'm going Monday. I'm going to get my hairline sorted. I'm getting the transplant done. I'm getting rid of the baldness.
You're getting the Turkish treatment.
Yes, in Harley Street, though, sir. In Harley Street.
Okay.
Yes.
My mate just got back from a trip to Turkey where he got his done. It was very good. So.
Honestly, they look all right. I got a few mates that have it done. It looks splendid. But yeah, Gerrard is taking the proverbial at the moment, and I mean that in a positive way. I had to explain to someone last week, Dean, that when as a working class person you say you're taking the piss, you actually mean it as a compliment. You don't. It doesn't mean all these gooners going. What do you mean we took the piss? We didn't take. We followed the rules. It's a compliment. I don't know what's wrong with people, but he's doing such a good job at Aston Villa, and the level of player that he's been able to bring in, the quality that he's brought in, the way they're playing football. Again, if this signing comes off and then they have a good summer, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, but you start thinking about this is a team, again, that's going to easily challenge next year for top 6. Easily challenge the top 6. And they're playing brilliant football as well. They need to get rid of Tyrone Mings and bring a proper centre back in because he is a I swear Gerrard must look at him and think, what is this? What is this? But yeah, they're doing some bits down there at the moment.
I see they're linked with Joe Gomez as well, which is an interesting one because Joe Gomez, I'm not sure what his future is going to be at Liverpool, but highly thought of in the England setup to the point where, I think Southgate at one point thought he should be playing every time he's available. But Gerrard could have a sniff around there as well and sign a centre back. Then we are really looking at Aston Villa being completely transformed.
Absolutely. We're seeing a lot of people now ask about Fabio for you. They all want to know about Fabio.
He's such a good player, mate. He's so good. Like, you probably haven't seen him, but he's a teenager at Fulham. He's burst onto the scene this year. I've watched a lot of him, and like the confidence of this guy, the skill is unreal. He hasn't signed a new contract. There's been a lot of clubs looking at him, and Liverpool's interest has definitely turned his head. I don't know what he's going to do at this point. Like, it seems like he's going to leave Fulham. He would never tell it by the way he plays, by the way he conducts himself, by the way he tries to be on side with the fans. It doesn't seem like he's a guy desperate to leave Fulham. But this happens all the time with Fulham. It's Patrick Roberts. It happens with Ryan Sessegnon. It happened with Harvey Elliott. And it looks like this guy's going to go that way too, which is obviously a shame for me who's trying to watch a team be built. But whoever gets him is getting an unreal player.
And I'm not surprised because, the academy operations manager is one of the best football minds I know. He's called Lee Haggar, and he was my PE teacher at Norlton Boys in East London.
Oh, really?
We had this PE department that was out of this world in the sense of we had 4 teachers. We had Miss McPortland, who went to the Olympics for Team GB in 2 different sports, in hockey and table tennis.
Wow.
We had Mr. McDonald, who played professional basketball, NBA, and then back in the UK. We had Mr. Manning. I don't remember his first name, but he played for Southampton for 3 years before a bad knee injury, and then so he was a professional footballer. And then Mr. Haggar, who he was a PE teacher, but he had FA and FIFA coaching badges. So he was like he wasn't a PE teacher, really. He was serious level. And the teams that we had and how good we were. And I remember leaving school and everything else. And then years later hearing that he was now at Fulham, and just thinking that's where he needed to be. Like, with all due respect to teaching kids at school, like, he needed to go somewhere where he was. And it was really amazing. About 5-6 years ago, I was at an airport, and I saw all these kids walking around in Fulham tracksuits, and I don't know, about 14, 15. And I was like, and then I heard they were messing around, and I heard someone shout and bring them all together and kind of tell them off. And the voice went through me because it was like, I've been told off by him before. And I kind of walked over and said hello. And it was quite nice. He remembered me, and it was a nice chat. But yeah, I'm not surprised Fulham Academy is doing well when he's there, just because I know him. He's absolute brilliant. Just he's a great coach, but he's the way he gets into your mind in terms of how to play. When I was a bang average footballer, but he made me, for the level, he made me all right. He made me all right. And I remember, and that was, he was my PE teacher, and he refereed our game once because the referee didn't turn up, and he sent me off because he sent me off. But it was again a great learning curve for me. One of our players called Blair, very quick, was running down the wing, and I don't know why I said it. I shouted something like "run like the effing wind." Yeah. And I swore, and he turned around and looked at me, and he went, "Did you swear?" "Oh, no, I'm really sorry, sir." He just pulled out a red card and went, "Get off." And I'm like, "But we're down to 10 men." He went, "I don't care. You're going to learn you're going to do things right." And I respected that so much because I'm like, he put his own team down to 10 men to teach me a lesson.
Yeah.
It's very
Didn't stop you from swearing, though, did it? Long term.
No, around him it did. There's no
around
way.
Him, yeah.
There's no way around him I was ever swearing again. I was scared of him, but there we go. But yeah, your academy is absolutely goated for some of the players that have come out and through there. There's a tweet that's just come out from Fabrizio here that says agreement in place between Juve and Fiorentina. Details and term payments being sorted. Final stages on contract now discussed between the player, his agent, and board are working through that process. Yeah, it's pretty much done. It's pretty much done, as we know. Manchester is blue. Well, not until you win at least 3 Champions Leagues and 20 league titles, my friend. You're better than us right now, but come on now. Terry, what? Come on, Terry, you take a high school coach who's one of the best football minds around. Well, the fact that he runs up the academy now, yes.
Gotta do all right. Gotta be all right.
For teaching kids, he's doing all right, mate. He's doing all right. Yeah. But thank you very much. Oh, and I was being a little bit. I'm not saying he's as smart as Fergie with football, bro. Like, calm down. Polarization of people now. It's crazy. Totally, absolute pleasure as ever. Everyone who's tuned in, thank you. Before you leave, make sure you smash that like button. Give this stream a bit of a share as well. That would be amazing. Until next time, take care. Goodbye. God bless. And we'll see you.